Hello, welcome back. Thank you for joining us wherever you're watching here at Tech and AI Live London. It's time, I'm very pleased to say, for our next keynote, and it's a real pleasure to introduce Becky Power. Becky is Managing Director for Central Strategy and Operations for Europe, Middle East and Europe at Google, and she's talking AI for people, society and businesses. Becky, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've had the usual challenges of the office working day today, so we're really grateful that you can get to us. Becky, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and sorry for the slight delay. We just had a fire drill. The pleasure of being back in the office, as you say. But thank you very much for having me here this morning. As you said, I'm the Managing Director for EMEA Strategy and Operations at Google. I've been at Google over 18 years, with 10 of them leading partnerships with travel and retail clients, helping them accelerate their businesses with digital transformation. And I'm really delighted to share with you today how AI has the potential to benefit people, society, and businesses. So we often think about AI as the third big shift. And I'm going to take a minute just to talk about the first two shifts that we've had, and also share a couple of stories with you. Now, the first shift I think about in my lifetime is the internet. And when I first started at university in the UK, my parents were living in America. And I used to keep in touch with them by speaking on the phone. And I used to put coins into an actual phone box. And I used to text them using my trusty Nokia 3310. And I used to write letters. But my dad was quite forward-thinking when it came to tech, and he encouraged me to get an email address. Now, I didn't have a computer in my first year at university, and in fact, there were 6 shared computers for the entire college of about 300 students. I really remember that they were up 5 flights of stairs. There was definitely no lift, and there was no guarantee that there'd be a computer free when I got there, or that it would connect to the internet. But when it did, I would send a quick email to my dad, and that would be me done for kind of a week. Normally, he'd then call me and say, have you picked up my email? Go and check it again. And I'd go up and check him again. And when I think about then the change of the internet since then, it's just incredible that we are walking around today with devices in our pockets and our laptops connected to the internet. And it's not just about emails, it's also about connecting people with the information that they need, and brands and businesses all over the world. So moving on to our second shift, I've mentioned that I had a Nokia 3310. I also had a BlackBerry when I first started work. And now we're walking around, most people in the world are walking around with smartphones, accessing the internet wherever they are and whenever they want. So let's think about this third big shift, and that's AI. And everyone is talking about AI. In fact, in 2023, it was the most notable word in the Collins Dictionary. And there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of excitement about AI, but there's also a lot of questions. What does it mean for us as people? What does it mean for companies that we work in? What does it mean for society? So I'm going to share some of that today, but first of all, I'll take you on a bit of a journey of my time at Google and how we've been thinking about AI. So Google's been an AI-first company since 2016, so 8 years now. And during this time, we've been thinking about how we can apply AI to our products to make them radically more helpful, both for users and for consumers. And I've picked one of our products, and I'm going to tell you a story again, and this is why I love this product so much. And the product is Google Maps. And I'm sure most of you or some of you have used Google Maps before, but the story I'm going to share is from way back before maps existed, when you had to navigate using a paper map. Now, if some of you weren't around then or weren't old enough to remember that, then please just bear with me. But when I first moved to London, I remember I drove to a friend's house for a housewarming party. The system at the time was a paper map. I'd checked the directions before I was leaving, and I'd scribbled out a summary of the road names and the turns, and I just started off on my journey. But it was winter, and it got dark when I was driving, and I couldn't read any of the notes that I'd written down. And it turns out that Dulwich in London is actually quite large. And I got really lost. So all I could do was pull over, turn the light on in the car, pull up my instructions on my paper map, check where I was, remember a couple of directions, drive on, do that again repeatedly until I actually got to the destination that I needed to. Now, I'm sure that maps have probably saved an enormous amount of time, but have also hopefully saved a lot of arguments in cars. And now we're all walking around following this blue dot on our phones. I have a 6-year-old, and he's absolutely obsessed with following this blue dot as we walk along, making sure that we're going the right way. But when we think about AI, Maps is continuing to evolve with AI. And some of you may have seen that now, using the power of AI, you can actually look at the most fuel-efficient route that there is. And that looks at historical traffic data to calculate those routes. And now you've got this concept called immersive view, where you can actually immerse yourself into the map to see what it's like to explore a city, right down to what the weather might be like. So let's move on now to talk about the benefits to people and society of AI. Now, this first story is one that I really love, and first example is one I really love. A, because I was a biologist by degree, but also because I have several friends impacted by breast cancer. And actually, there's more than 2 million people around the world diagnosed every year with breast cancer, and it is a cancer where early detection can really save lives. And AI has been proven to be as accurate as some of the radiologists at detecting it. So what we've done at Google is to work with hospitals and trusts to have this AI solution as a second independent reader, with the hope that in the long term it can improve accessibility to breast cancer detection and assessment worldwide, meaning that more people can get earlier screens and early detection. I'm going to stick on the science theme for a minute and talk about a project called AlphaFold, which some of you may have heard about. But AlphaFold is Google DeepMind's AI-enabled protein mapping tool. So proteins, for those of you who weren't as close to biology as I was when I was studying, proteins are the building blocks of life. And for decades, scientists have been trying to find a method to reliably determine a protein structure based on the sequence of amino acids that make it up. If you can do that, it can help you understand diseases, it can unlock treatment options, it can find biorenewable materials. But mapping this protein structure can be expensive and it can be time-consuming. And in fact, it can take a PhD student several years to actually map this out, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So Google DeepMind thought, well, how can we use AI to be able to help with this problem? And in just under a year, we were able to develop a scientific breakthrough that meant that this tool, AlphaFold, could map hundreds of millions of proteins. Think how much time that has saved our PhD students and how far it can advance science. This third example I'm going to talk about, I love because I'm one of these people, when I sit at traffic lights, I'm always really frustrated as to why the traffic phasing of the lights doesn't seem to be quite right. And it seems like I'm sitting there for longer than I need to be. But actually, there's more to it than that. And pollution is about 30 times higher at city intersections than it is when you're driving down the open road. So not only is being stopped at a traffic light quite frustrating for your journey, it also is having a huge impact on the environment. Now, some of that traffic stopping is unavoidable, but if you can optimize your traffic light sequencing, it can make a big difference. That sounds quite straightforward, but if you're a traffic engineer, it's quite hard to access reliable current information to be able to do that optimization. So Google came up with this project called Green Light. And what this did was it used driving trends from Google Maps to model the traffic patterns to help improve the flow of traffic through the city. It then spits out recommendations that the city engineers can use to optimize these traffic light schedules. And the best part is they can implement it in about 5 minutes. They don't need any different technology, and they can see the results within a matter of weeks. So what are those results? Well, we're still in a fairly early stage with this, but we're using this in 13 cities across 4 continents, and it's impacted about 30 million car rides monthly. That's leading to about a 10% reduction in emissions at those intersections. So just think what value could be added, both to people's journeys and also the environmental impact if that's scaled worldwide. I'm going to flick now to talk about AI for businesses. Many of you are probably thinking, how can AI actually help my business? How can it drive efficiencies? And what does the future look like? So I'm going to talk through some examples. But before I do that, I just want to take a step back and think about the impact that AI could have on the economy. And at Google, we did some research with Public First in the UK, and the estimates that they came up with was that AI could add 400 billion to the UK economy by 2030. That's the equivalent of about a 2.6% annualized GDP growth. But actually, if you think about what that means to the average worker, it's saving about 100 hours a year. That's 2 weeks. And when we dig a bit more into some of the specific jobs, when we looked at the public sector, the research showed that they could save about 700,000 hours a year of admin work from GPs and teachers. That's a huge time saving that could be spent in the classroom with students or in surgery seeing patients. So let's dive into what some of these solutions might be for your companies or your day-to-day of how you're working. And here's a couple of examples that I'm using regularly at work now. And the first one is around Google Workspace, and it's around slide creation. So from the very beginning, for those of you that use any of our Workspace products, either for your personal use or at work, you'll know that one of the things that they were designed to do to start with was to make collaboration really easy. I started my career as a consultant. I was often traveling to client sites, and we used to put our presentations onto a drive that we would then share between ourselves. There'd be multiple different versions of this. It was quite hard to keep on top of version control, and I definitely spent many a late night updating what wasn't the latest version of a presentation to just have to do it again the next day. So this idea that you can collaborate and you can update a presentation while other people are also working on it was a real step forward for me. But now what you can actually do is it can help you create visuals. So what you need to do is write a prompt, a text prompt in the right-hand side, and it can create an original visual that can convey your artistic thoughts. Now, I know many of you, particularly if you do presentations that you speak at or at work, are probably spending quite a bit of time thinking about your slide creation. And this really, really simplifies it and streamlines it for you. And the next one is around email. So for those of you that use the Gmail product, there's been a feature called Smart Reply and Compose that's been around for a while. And essentially what it does is it finishes your sentences for you. Extremely helpful, particularly if you're on a mobile, on the move, so you don't have to write as much. But there's now a whole new feature powered by AI where you can write a prompt and it can create an entire RFP or a loan application. And I do this at work a lot. I actually get it to draft emails for me. I get it to summarize documents for me. And again, it's saving a huge amount of time. So there's some really practical examples about how AI could impact your day-to-day at work. But it's not just about driving efficiencies in terms of your day-to-day or how your employees are working. AI can also help you find the right customers at the right time more efficiently. So I'll talk a bit about this, but I actually want to take a step back and think about why is that important today and what's happening with consumer behavior. So for many brands at the moment, they're obviously under pressure from a volatile economic landscape. They're having to think about accelerating their digital maturity, and consumers are expecting a lot more personalization. Your demands on your marketing team are increasing. Those team members are being expected now to navigate things like privacy, readiness, and a cookieless future, data-driven marketing, data-driven content creation, end-to-end measurement, the list goes on. So they're in this environment that's very complex, and then consumer behavior is also really changing. On one hand, consumers are becoming really obsessed with research, and people are exploring more and evaluating their options more than ever before. And research we've done has shown that about 2/3 of consumers are using 5 or more online sources before they buy. That could be things like running a search, watching an online video, going to maps. It's also switching between app and mobile and online. And that switching behavior and that research is at an all-time high, even compared to the heights of COVID when all of our stores were closed in the UK and across many parts of the world. We're also seeing what people search for is becoming a lot more specific. It's becoming much more refined. So instead of someone searching, for example, for pajamas, we're seeing search queries come through for very specific things like matching pajamas for couples. And consumers are being very demanding when it comes to personalisation, with about 2/3 of consumers in the UK saying they really want their brand to have a personalised experience for them. And in addition to that, impulse shopping is also really growing. And it's about 25% of consumers are now saying they've purchased an impulse buy over a 2-day period. So not only is this purchase funnel becoming incredibly complex, it's becoming very, very refined and specific of what people are looking for. They want a personalized experience, but they're also popping up and having these spontaneous, quite quick purchase journey experiences happening too. So what does this mean as a company? What does this mean as a marketer? How do you find consumers and how do you get the right message in front of them at the right time in this constantly moving environment? Well, AI can really help here. And again, I'm just going to use some of Google's products. There are other products out there in the digital marketing space, but just to give you some examples, some of you might be marketers, some of you might have worked with some of these products, but if you haven't, I'll simplify them down just so you can understand what the power of AI can do when it comes to marketing and consumer acquisition and retention. And I'm going to talk first about a product called Performance Max. And what Performance Max does is it works across all of our advertising services to discover new pockets of demand and to drive conversions at scale. So as an example, a business would now set their goals, their budgets, and they provide some core assets. And then this tool, Performance Max, powered by AI, will find pockets of demand to meet those criteria to deliver the highest performing media campaigns. So it streamlines a lot of the detailed implementation, tracking, monitoring, and optimization that companies used to have to do. And on average, the businesses we've been working with say that there's about 18% more conversions at a similar cost per action with this product. So it's cutting out a lot of costs. It's becoming a lot more effective, a lot more efficient. I'm going to take a moment to talk about creative, because connecting with the right customers at the right time is not the only challenge. You've also got to be there with the right message, the right creative. You've got to think about all the different digital formats that are available. So short form videos, long form video, display ads, the list goes on. And you add to this the fact that pretty much everyone, tying back to that shift of mobile, is now walking around with essentially a production studio in their hand, in their phones, and we found that short form content has exploded as a result of this. So essentially, you've now got everyone creating all this content. There's lots and lots of short form content out there, and consumers are watching more of this content on their big screens. So they're pushing things that they're watching from their phones, from their devices onto their big screen. This certainly happens in my household. I mentioned I have a 6-year-old. We have various YouTube influencers that are up on my screen, on my TV screen in my lounge, every single morning before school. So how can AI help here? Well, to tackle this shift in consumer behavior and content creation, we've been using the power of AI at Google to help create assets for brands. So about 1/4 of our YouTube advertisers today have an automatically generated video asset in their campaign. So this works by, it repackages static images. So it could be text or app store listing assets. And what it does is creates and packages them into new vertical, horizontal, and square video ads. And this is really powerful for brands, particularly for retailers who are seeing immediate benefits from this rich, immersive visual content. So hopefully that shared with you some examples of how AI can help provide the opportunity and what it can do for society, how it can fuel growth, how it can unlock value creation. But to do this, it is going to need real clarity of focus, of pace, and collaboration. It's going to require real investment in AI infrastructure. That might be data centers, it could be distribution, it might be energy. And it will require our workforces to be AI ready. It's going to need a real investment in people to prepare them for the opportunities and the skills training that they're going to need in this third big shift that they're going to go through. I want to say a big thank you very much for listening. Thank you for being patient while we had our fire drill here today, and enjoy the rest of your sessions.
That presentation was absolutely riveting. You set out so many different ways that AI is making a real difference to lots of business sectors and to people's lives. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And one of the things that I picked up earlier in your presentation there was how AI is used in the health sector with real promise. So that ties in very much. Becky, I'm going to let you get back to your office because you've had a heck of a busy day. Thank you so much for joining us.